Good afternoon. Welcome to Optimal Care Pediatrics, conveniently located in St. Lucie West. I'm Dr. Mundazy, pediatrician owner of the practice. With me today, I have a wonderful panel. We're going to be discussing social media concerns. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Tessa.
So hi, I'm Tessa Falatovich. I'm a community educator with the Parent Academy in St. Lucie County. And we focus on bridging the gap between services for family, home, and child so that everything is just as holistic as possible.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Robert Campbell, Suncoast Mental Health. We provide mental health services for adults and children in St. Lucie County, as well as the other surrounding counties.
Detective Christopher Newman. I'm with the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, and I'm currently the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force representative.
Thank you. So before we delve into the dangers of social media, let's talk about the benefits. Why do people love social media? Adults, children?
Well, I think one of the reasons we love social media and the internet in general is just because it's so instantaneous. Any information is accessible. Our friends around the globe are just a text message or a chat away. And anything that we want to know is just right in front of us.
And not just friends, family as well.
Mm-hmm.
Easier, quicker to contact, no long distance phone calls and things of that nature. So easier, quicker access.
Yeah, I agree. It's just the ease of access and information.
We can communicate quickly, easily with each other, and we can reach a lot of people.
Exactly.
Right? So can you explain, Tessa, the difference between some of these social media sites like Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram?
Sure, I can go for a try. I haven't been on MySpace in a very long time. But when MySpace first started, for example, it was just to connect with friends and have a really fun, cool interface of creating your own personal website, essentially. Now, these days, I think MySpace is used more or less for music and communication for the arts and things like that. Facebook is almost a thread type interface where you're posting whatever you can to just let people that you know into your life that they may not be there every second, if that makes sense. Twitter is just instantaneous. You can have an immediate thought, you can tweet it out, you can have followers, retweet it, whatever else. Instagram, and my personal favorite platform, is just visual. So you can post anything to Instagram and someone may find it visually pleasing or interesting, whatever else, and they can now, with new features, share it, or you can share it privately through a message, you can be inspired and things of that matter.
So it's just pictures?
Yes, so what you can do is you can comment below and tag with hashtags or business handles, things like that. And you're posting images, most popularly, as we all know, food, right? We love to take pictures of our food. That you can share with anyone.
Do these images and pictures disappear?
Not from Instagram, not unless you delete them. So Snapchat is a famous one, for example, where you do have those disappearing messages in chats. So they will disappear in Snapchat again, for example, from the chat after a certain amount of time, but they are kept by Snapchat in their system.
Okay. So they're not completely gone?
Not completely, no.
So what are some of the dangers of this not completely gone? These images not being completely gone or stored?
The safest way to be on the internet is to realize that anything that you ever put out there is never truly gone, that it's always there. And you can see it 10 years later, somebody can find it and bring it back up.
Is that a digital footprint?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say somebody, who's going to be looking for your information in 10 years?
Anyone. And that's what children or adults don't think about, is the fact that something they did today, yesterday, and put on the web could be looked at by an employer or someone else later on down the line. And something that you did as a youngster and you might not have been so happy about, thinking about it 10 years from now that you did back then. It's there. It's, somebody could just pull it up and bring it back. You thought it was like something in your past. It follows you for, ever, once you put it out there like that.
Exactly. So that's your employers,
Yes.
college admissions,
Exactly.
medical school, graduate
Exactly.
school. The list goes on, and not just employers and academics, but also your family,
Right.
friends as well.
Right.
So yes, it does not completely go away. Next question, should I be friends with my child on social media? Facebook, Instagram?
It's important to stay connected to your children and see, try to attempt to see what they're involved in, who they're talking to, and things of that nature. So if you do allow your child on one of these social media sites, I would say yes, just to kind of keep tabs on them.
So should I pretend to be somebody else, or should I actually friend you as mom?
I would not go the route of saying you're somebody else because you want to be honest with and teach your children honesty.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think one of the biggest things when I work with teenagers is my mom keeps trying to follow me on Snapchat. And I think when you get into these older teen years, there is a really, really great deal of importance on independence. So having those conversations with your kids and saying, hey, I would like to know more information. What is Snapchat? How do you use Snapchat? And then going through it that way so that they have a little bit more room to grow as an individual. But definitely if you have these younger kids
Right.
that are on social media, I would say just say, hey, I would like to let you be on social media. I know you're interested in it. Would it be okay if I was your friend on there so that we can talk together, and going about it that way instead of maybe saying, hey, you can only use social media if I'm on there, because that might scare them a little. You know what I mean?
Well, not scare them, but deter them. But you still have to be conscientious of your children and understand that just because you have one account doesn't mean you can't make others.
Yeah.
So your child might say, yeah, we can be friends on there, but not to allow you to see everything that they're doing. They might open up another account and have other things going on that they don't want you to know about. So you have to be try to be as open with them as possible and to really kind of in their business. You gotta, just keep your hands on with them, because kids today are not the kids of yesterday. And they always try to stay ahead of parents. So you have to stay 2-3 steps ahead of them and just kind of keep your ears open to what's going on.
So would it be beneficial to lay out exactly what they're allowed to post or allowed to discuss, or what type of pictures we're allowed
There
to?
definitely has to be ground rules laid
Yes.
for underage users using the internet, because there's so much out there that they can get involved with that is not what they should be into at that time.
Right.
What type of ground rules can you state some for us?
Well, like with my daughter, our ground rules are there are only certain types of posts, there's only certain kinds of Pinterest, and we never use her real name on any of her Pinterest accounts. We don't give out personal data, personal information, anything like that. Teach them to be a little safeguarded, because there are people who are going to ask, hey, what's your mom's name? What does your mom do? What is your dad's name? Where do you live? How old are you? What's your birthday? And that's the kind of information, especially at that age, you shouldn't be giving out.
Definitely. And I knew of one parent, what she did with her son was through the phone service that they used, whatever he pulled up, her phone would be notified. So if he tried to go on any sites or anything like that, she would know exactly what sites, on top of the parental control she already had in place. Even if he attempted and it wouldn't go, she knew that he attempted. So that would be a way to, have that connection there and let them know.
Right.
And let them know that, I have this on your phone, so don't even attempt. But the parent will know if they did that.
Detective Newman, how can kids and parents create safe usernames? Like some people may put a child's birthday or part of their address in a username so that they can remember it, but is it giving out too much information?
Usually, yes. I mean, like if you're using zip codes and birthdays and street names for your online identity, it's real easy for people to pick apart and to use. And to Google, there's so many search engines out there where you can put basic information about somebody and really get a rough idea of who they are just by narrowing it down. Things that you can use that make it easier for you are maybe like a pet's name that nobody else would know, or a trip that you may have taken, or something you can remember, but it's not going to put your personal information on the internet.
Excellent. If a child's very socially dependent on their phone or laptop, how can their use be limited without them feeling deprived, like they're cut off from their world?
I would say definitely, in my opinion, try to avoid the immediate taking away, right? Because a lot of kids see their phones and computers and tablets as lifelines, so immediately taking that away just sends into panic mode. And a great way is to, you can limit usage on your phone. Some parental apps will allow you to set like bedtimes, for example, or blue light filters so that it'll start narrowing down and making you a little bit more tired. Your eyes won't be as stressed, things like that. Another great way is just to say, hey, would you like to do this with me? And say, oh, but I'm putting my phone away too. Do you think we could put our phones away just for this activity? And just starting to get into that ritual, doing activities that don't require you to have a phone involved might also help.
Excellent. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would say setting before even, kids that are just coming of age and, parents are considering giving them a phone, setting the ground rules from the beginning, the time frame, the time limit on these phones. And, as they get older, still looking at the time frames and maybe giving them a little bit more time as they're getting older. But as Tisha said, to spend more time with them and break away from the phones. The families need to connect more, and not through social media, but families within the home, they need to take a time out. It's good for everyone, not just the children, everyone, to take a time out and spend time together playing, board games or going to a movie together or just doing something, because families have gotten away from that time that we used to spend together doing things. Everybody's on their phone. We're in the car, we're on our phone. Nobody's, just talking and, finding out how everybody's day went and things of that nature. We've gotten away from that. So definitely if we can, spend a few days out of the week doing that, having dinner together, phones away, just family time, just doing more of that.
To carve out some time.
Exactly.
We're not using any devices.
Exactly.
Detective Newman, what about the family contracts regarding social media? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you should have a family contract, I believe, when you're dealing in social media, so everybody is involved and knows what's going on. It's definitely a plus.
Mm-hmm. So maybe when you're actually purchasing the phone for the child,
Right.
to lay out the contract so the expectations are put out there up front.
Exactly.
And consequences for breaking the contract. What do you suggest is reasonable?
Well, I think being upfront first when they're first getting the phone. I mean, it's kind of hard to set up the consequences once you've given them the phone. You haven't discussed it from the beginning. So coming from when they're getting the phone, you should already be thinking about these things and how, if something comes up, because the parent is going to use that as a consequence for the child, and they're going to have that breakdown because you're instantaneously taking it from them. It should be discussed at the beginning, depending on what happens and things of that nature, because you don't want to be too severe, because some parents go too severe at the beginning where something happened at school, or I'm taking your phone for a whole week, and that's one of the ways that they communicate with their friends and things and family. You don't want to go too severe, so it just depends on what has happened, and have to sit down with your child and talk about it, and then move forward. But for those that already have the phone, a parent needs to sit down with them from this point and say, you know what, we need to talk about, things that have been going on and your certain consequences, because even those parents they're severe with the consequences. Sometimes it's not as bad. I think sometimes, things that happen at school, other kids were involved, your child wasn't. The school, they have a no tolerance, and sometimes the kid that wasn't really the perpetrator, they get those severe consequences, and it shouldn't have been as severe as the school has made it sometimes. So you don't want to double punish them, because at school it's more severe as it is. Then at home, now they're double on top of whatever happened at school. That child is going to be truly hurt, upset, disappointed in what's going on, and feel like no one's listening to them. And you don't want the child to ever feel like that.
And I think a great way too is those contracts and ground rules, asking your child to what they think the discipline should be.
Yes.
Because we don't give some kids enough credit.
Right.
And they'll say, well, if it's this bad, maybe I should have my phone taken away. Maybe I shouldn't be using that as much. So involving them in the process of the consequences or the discipline that comes from those consequences could really be beneficial, so that they know upfront what's happening with your contract or your ground rules.
So this comes up at my house. I have a 10-year-old. What age should I get my child a smartphone? What's an appropriate age?
I think it really depends on the child,
Yeah.
the maturity level of the child, and the responsibility level of the child. I mean, there are some 17, 18, 30-year-olds that have cell phones that probably shouldn't have cell phones that are smartphones, and there are some 14-year-olds that are really responsible that it would be okay.
Mm-hmm. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier,
Right.
but the type of the phone, do they need the iPhone 10? Or will the flip phone, suffice?
And, as the detective was saying, it depends on the child, and your input and involvement with that child in discussion. Yes, it's, fun for them, and, the access that they have when it comes down to, having these more expensive phones and the things that they can do with these phones, because they're miniature computers in their hands. That's just what they are. So, if they're utilizing it to help themselves in school and things of that nature, then it's truly beneficial. If they're using it to keep in contact with family, some friends out there, then it can be beneficial. So it just depends on the maturity of the child, like the detective was saying.
A question just came in. What social media sites are young people using that parents may not know about?
There are social media sites that come out weekly. It's every time you turn around, there's a new social media platform that somebody's using, and just there's so many startup companies. It's really hard, even for law enforcement, just to keep up with what's available and what's out there now. A lot of for example, Facebook. They found out that children under the age of, I think, 17 aren't really using Facebook anymore. They're all more on Kik and Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram, whereas people over 30 are using Facebook, and now there are new platforms coming out. So it's really tough to keep up with them.
Can you identify a few of the newer ones? I know you mentioned Kik. That's one that disappears and just disappear.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Well, the main ones are Kik, Snapchat, Instagram is big, Twitter is big. Facebook is still used for Messenger a lot, and like Facebook Live, like we're doing here. Other than that, like I said, there's a lot of lower, no-name ones that, like I said, it's really hard to keep up with them. Tumblr is another one. Tumblr is another, like a blogging kind of site where you just get in there and just put things in rooms and people can respond to it and stuff like that. So Tumblr is another big one that we've been dealing with.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree. But I think the focus for most teenagers is going to be Snapchat and Instagram, because even in the last year with the teenagers that I work with who are on Tumblr and they are on Kik, they'll even say, I don't use that a lot anymore, or I'm not on Facebook anymore. I just keep it so that my family can see me in their friends list and things like that. So as the detective was saying, there's a new app coming out every week. there's something to always beat something else. So it's a matter of trial and error for a lot of teenagers. They're just seeing what works. But again, the most popular is going to be Instagram and Snapchat.
And now we're moving on to the limits. What should the limits be by age for how much screen time, social media time a child should have?
I'm a firm believer that nobody should use their phone past 9 p.m. just because it hurts your eyes. But I would definitely say, nothing too extensive. It's really hard to put on a number.
Right.
If you guys could give me a guess.
Well, there have been some studies done, I'm not sure that you might know some of them in the medical field, where anybody that stares at a computer for more than an hour, it can be detrimental to your eyesight and some of the brain waves in your brain. So anything over an hour, I would think that you need to take a break. Even adults sit at the computer after an hour and need to get up and actually walk away and rest their eyes for a moment. So, I mean, it can be detrimental just health-wise.
Exactly. In pediatrics, we say under 2, they really don't need any screen time.
Right.
Over 2, no more than 2 hours a day. And a lot of kids will say, well, that's how we do our homework at school and at home, and this is how I have to do this project. And I mean, outside of that, like for recreational use, 2 hours is more than enough. Of course. Now, what is cyberbullying, and how does this differ from physical bullying?
That's a good one. Would you like to start?
Well, basically, cyberbullying is when these individuals, I'm not going to just say children, because it can happen with adults as well, are going after an individual, and almost like the same way you would bully someone in person, you're just constantly through whatever social media they're on, saying hateful things, and then not just by yourself, having others say these things as well, or just talk bad about a person, hurtful information. So it's almost just as bad as, in the physical sense.
And who is more likely to be a cyberbully?
So that's actually really interesting. There have been some studies done where they have, like you were saying, there are many parents who are cyberbullies. There are many adults as individuals who can be cyberbullies, and children. So I'm not sure if they've actually isolated an exact number of comparisons, if you would know anything.
So I looked at a study that said it's girls. Girls tend to be more of the cyberbully because they feel more emboldened to say something mean, and they're not really seeing the person's reaction to it. So I can't see that the person I just said something hateful to is actually crying or upset, but I can just continue to put mean things out there. Right? So it's actually girls.
Well, and what's most interesting to that is to actually follow up those mean posts. You have revenge posts, for example, which have become incredibly popular in the past 5 years. And then you have isolation, which a lot of us tend to forget about when it comes to cyberbullying. And way back when I was in high school, you had friends who would just say, "Oh, don't talk to this person," and that can take the form online of saying, "Hey, I think you should unfriend someone. I think you should stop following someone. I don't think we should talk to these people online anymore," and that will cause physical effects in school as well.
So what are some of the consequences for cyberbullying?
Oh, wow. The consequences, it's when we talk about consequences, it's not just about, a consequence in regards to the person that's doing the cyberbullying, but the outcomes that can happen because of cyberbullying. There have been individuals to commit suicide, unfortunately, because of this cyberbullying. So I don't want to say just the consequence, the outcomes that people have to look at because of what somebody else is doing or others are doing to an individual. Not too long ago, there was a young lady that sent some pictures to a young man, and because she stopped sending those pictures, and this was through the internet or phone, things like that, he was saying that he was going to post her pictures, and she didn't know who to turn to, and because of that, she ended up taking her own life because of that. So it's massive when when you think about cyberbullying and what it entails.
Just a quick pause. Detective Newman was called out for an emergency, so he won't be with us for the rest of the session. So going back to our cyberbullying, how is this linked to depression? So we're seeing an increase in depression, and a lot of studies have come out tying this to social media use and cyberbullying. Can you comment on that?
I would say much like physical bullying, right? We always deal with self-esteem issues, and especially if, for example, we look at adolescents, we look at teens, to be specific, we're constantly looking for gratification online, right? And sometimes when we don't receive it, it hurts us even more. So when you come back at that with cyberbullying, and you have friends who, you may be friends with this person at school, and they're bullying you online. So that can be incredibly confusing to a teenager or a child in middle school. And you're going through all of these different hormonal stages in your life already, and to throw on top of that social media can really lead to some severe depression and anxiety. So you have that along with, those revenge posts that we were talking about, and, parents trying to friend you at the same time, and you're still figuring out social media, so it's just a cluster of confusion sometimes for some children.
And then you have to also remember with social media, it reaches so many people as we're doing here today. So when children are using it in that way, you can have, a fourth grader, dealing with their fourth grade class, but because so many other students are connected within that school, it could be a fourth grader, it could be fifth graders, so then even higher grades, because people are intertwined when it comes down to social media. Because when I look back at my Facebook page and I look at somebody who's connected to this person, then this person's connected to that person, it's like, wow. So it's massive when it comes down to who has seen these messages, and that's what these kids look at, is like, who has seen this message? So they get in their mind, it's not just these people following me that view this, but whoever sees another person's page can also repost and see these things as well. So these kids are understanding that.
So if a parent thinks their child is being cyberbullied, what action should they take?
The best thing to do is to just start a conversation. And because in that instance, you as the parent will probably be a little confused as to what's happening. Your child is going to be confused as to what's happening. So sitting down and saying, hey, could you explain this to me? I noticed this and I'm a little concerned. Is there anything going on? Or going that route so that you start that conversation with questions that are open-ended, right? Because a lot of times kids will just go, yes, no, and shut us down when we're trying to figure out what's happening. Do you have anything to add, Robert?
I mean, it's very important just to keep an open dialogue with your children regardless, so they can feel comfortable if anything of this nature may come about. As I was saying earlier, I have a youngster about to enter middle school, so just keeping that line of communication with them, and, just trying to understand, as they're transitioning through life, what's going on in your life, let them know that you're always here for them and that they don't have to keep things in secret, that you're not going to overreact to things, but you want to be a part of their life and help them through whatever's going on in their life. So just keep an open dialogue always.
Just to add to that, if there are classmates involved, it's fine to notify the school.
Yes.
There are certain points where law enforcement should be
Yes.
notified as well. Also to look for changes in your child if they're more withdrawn, keeping to themselves, not involved in their usual activities, changes in their personality, then start asking questions.
And to add to that, that means that, as a parent, you can't, just allow yourself to get so wrapped up into your own social media stuff. You have to stay in tune to your children, because as we were saying today, so many people are walking around with their heads down and not paying attention to what's going on around them. So staying in tune with your child is a big deal, and kind of putting your things to the side and giving yourself a timeout to make sure that they're okay.
Exactly. Lead by example.
Yes.
Put your phone down as well.
Exactly.
Now, Robert, you alluded to sexting. Can you tell me what that is, or people out there may not know what that is? And
Yes, definitely. Well,
Yes.
it definitely is. It is. And so many, children are getting involved in this way before their time. Basically, sexting, sending inappropriate pictures to individuals. Children, adults, unfortunately, are becoming more and more involved in this arena. And going back to what we were saying about things never going away. Once you've put it out there, those pictures, those images are there forever. Being in someone's phone or on the internet, you don't know where those pictures may end up. We've had so many people. In the news involved with these type of pictures that you would think that individuals would stop doing this, but it continues. So for kids, they need to really understand that taking these type of pictures or videos and sending them to others, you're not sure what those other people will do with those pictures. So you gotta really, I would say, just stop doing it.
Exactly.
I would actually like to take that one step further and say that sexting can also be any type of just verbal communication as well, just through text message. And one way that, what happens with a lot of teens that we've seen in some schools lately is that kids will take what they call receipts. So they'll take a screenshot of what they're doing, and typically, amongst my generation, we'll send those to our best friends and then either laugh about what's going on or talk about what's going on. But with kids, they'll typically send it to one person and then another person will send it to another person. And while that's an extreme case, it definitely does happen. So I would agree, just being mindful and being open with your child and saying, hey, listen, do you think this is appropriate? What would you do in this situation? Would you ever send something like this? What kind of conversations do you have? Because at that point, if you find out that your child is sexting or having those kinds of conversations, it's probably a great idea to just start having a little bit more conversations concerning sex in general, because they're curious, they want to know information.
Right. So again, when you're setting up your family media plan and contract, have that conversation about sexting. This is not what we're going to do. This is, we don't send these pictures, we don't engage in these text messages. So it's laid out there, so it's no surprise. I didn't know what could happen.
Exactly. And like I was saying earlier, if you can, set it up where you're receiving the information, because yes, you want to give your children some privacy, but privacy, as they get older, maybe as, they get older, they, say, okay, I'm going to not be connected to you as much. I'm going to give you a little privacy, but I can always go back and pull information. So, be upfront with them. I want to allow you to have some privacy as you're getting older, but we still have limits, and so communicate, always keeping that, that communication line open with them.
So that brings us to our next topic. How can a parent explain the difference between sexting, pornography, and viewing pornography on our smartphones or other devices?
So anyone who does send an explicit image online through a text message, that very real consequences can happen. There have been cases where children have been charged for child pornography and solicitation by sending nude images via text message or Snapchat or whatever else. So I think that porn conversation for any parent is going to be kind of tough.
And does it matter if the child is 18? Can a child under the age of 18 still be charged with, soliciting pornography?
I know that there are definitely some legal complexities to that. I can't speak to the actual legality of the issue because that's not my area of expertise, but I do know that there have been instances when teens who are 18, 19 are texting the younger 15, 16,
Right.
and that can become a really serious issue just because you cognitively at 18, 19, you're not going to be on the same cognitive level as a 15, 14, 16-year-old. So explaining the difference between pornography and sexting is that, pornography they're going to be able to access and it's not going to be people that they know typically, right? And sexting may be between you and whoever else you're dating or you and another person, someone that you physically may know. So having that conversation, sitting down and saying, hey, do you know what pornography is? Do you know if it's real? Do you know if what happens in these instances, it happens every day? And then going into that sexting conversation.
But also getting them to understand that either one can lead to some severe consequences behind it, and not wanting to get involved in that legalities is important for them to really understand as well. Tessa,
No worries.
brought up the fact that, that 18, 19-year-old and texting individuals under that age. We've come across a lot of individuals and them feeling like, well, I'm still a teenager, and some of the young ladies, they don't look at their age and things of that nature. Well, we need to speak to these young men and young women that reach that age and get them to understand that, you're considered an adult now, and that's how the law is going to look at it. You may or may not have known that this individual was underage, but you got to think about yourself now, and that you're in a different category. The criteria has changed for you, so you got to be concerned about your future and what this can do to your future as well, because you don't want to get this label, and wherever you go, this label is attached to you as an offender.
Yeah, and I think following that up, while it doesn't, I'm not quite sure if it happens as often, but when you go into that dating conversation, right, when you have kids who are kind of getting to that age and you're going into pornography and sexting conversations, it should also be included to talk about apps like Tinder, because we live in the Tinder age where relationships are very easy to find.
Tell us what Tinder is.
So for those of you who do not know, Tinder is a fast dating app. It's almost like you could call it speed dating, where you have a profile of that person. You can swipe left or right, depending on whether you approve of that match or not. And it was only changed within the last year, the actual sign-up age for Tinder, which used to be 13. Yes, and it was changed to 18. So a lot of those profiles that they couldn't determine age, it was put out in a press release that they would, remove. So kids who are turning 18, they can legally, as by the Tinder privacy policy, sign up for a Tinder. And you will move through these very fast-paced relationships, whether it be for hookups or you're looking for an actual relationship. So that's a very real conversation to have with kids as well. I know that 13 statistic is scary.
Yeah. And what if a parent suspects that their child is being preyed on by an adult online? What should the adult do? What should the parent do?
Well, if there's some suspicions, going back to the law enforcement, I think, when it comes down to you having these suspicions, I think you need to bring law enforcement in and for them to, they have their team that can go ahead and do their research and follow up with that just to make sure. I mean, this is your child. I don't think you need to, just leave it let it go. You definitely need to bring law enforcement in and let them, because they, over the years, you know, the internet has grown so much. You know, when I was back in school, you know, it was just logging in and, you know, hearing this phone dial in and things of that nature. So just dating myself a little bit. But now it's like, it's massive. So I don't think you can really handle this on your own, because there are people going missing, not just children, but adults just going missing because they're being taken, you know, kidnapped. So when you have some kind of suspicions, I think you need to just bring law enforcement in just to double check and make sure if you have those kind of concerns.
And I will also say that I know we were talking about it a little bit before when we met up earlier this morning, but the TV show Catfish, right, is one of my favorite topics to talk to parents and kids about, because they give some great tips on kind of deciphering whether or not a profile that you're interacting with may or may not be the real thing. So that's looking for indicators in photos and usernames and things like that. So having that conversation with your kids and saying, hey, I noticed that you're talking to so-and-so. Have you met them before? And if they say no, you can say, well, do you know if they're a real person? Have you video chatted with them? And then you can go into those things that might be little red flags for you as a parent.
Right.
And say, okay, well, you know, I'll mark that for later. That could be another conversation. But right now, we need to figure out if this person is a threat.
Right. And you said real person. Well, they know it's a real person.
Yes.
But is this someone that is of age? Is who exactly is? Are they really that person that's on the screen that you think you're talking to? So that's what they need to understand, is when you say real person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this question just came in. What should I do if my kids receive unwanted images on their phone?
I would say if it's, again, one of those sexting topics where your child may have been mass sent a screenshot from Snapchat or something like that, it's definitely worth it to reach out to maybe the parent of that child or something like that and say, hey, I noticed something concerning. Have you seen this? Because as we stated before, there can be some very serious legal ramifications for things like that.
And when you say receiving images on their phone, there has to be some way to block who the person, who the images are coming from. So depending on if it's text or through social media, you should still be able to block that person, so that they won't be able to receive those type of images from that person.
You can also reach out to the site administrators if something is inappropriate.
You can. So you can actually, Instagram, for example, you can flag content as inappropriate. You can do the same thing on Facebook and wherever else, because each of those apps and those platforms will have policy guidelines. They'll tell you what they deem as being inappropriate. And then you can go into those steps of blocking that person in your phone contacts. For example, on Samsung, you just click more information and scroll straight down and block the phone number. So it's very easy to do.
So that leads to parental controls for social media. What apps can you use?
I actually got a really great tip from a parent this past Thursday who said that one of the ways that she helps keep parental guidelines through her kids searching for things is she actually only lets them search through Pinterest, because it pre-filters a lot of those images, which I thought was very interesting. There are some sites that you will have a harder time implementing parental controls on, such as YouTube, but they have, again, updated their policies to be a little bit more filtered. But you can download, you can do a search just on Google in the App Store for Apple.
Play Store,
Yeah, you can find any of those apps. I would just say be cognizant of what you're downloading and what you're accessing, and read some of the comments from other users and what they have to say to make sure that you aren't downloading anything that could be destructive to your phone or could be a little bit more invasive than you think it is. I'm one of those people who I love reading policies.
Good.
for which a lot of people don't do, and I highly recommend everybody does it. You just typically will click yes on something. Yes, I would like to share my location. Yes, I would like to share this. Yes, you can have access to my content. So really going through some of those guidelines and understanding what you are allowing your child to have access to, what you yourself are allowing access to through your phone, through your tablets, and things like that.
So we do not want to share our location.
I would not recommend it. I only turn my location on when I'm using my GPS. If I search a hashtag on Instagram or something like that to see what other people are doing, or if I'm posting a photo, I will only hashtag or tag a location after I've left that location. Simply because I am, one of those adults, I don't like running into people from high school, and in order to avoid that, I don't have anybody popping up if I say, hey, I'm at Indian Riverside Park, and someone can show up and say, hey, I knew you were here. So being very cognizant, again, of what you're actually allowing your phone to access on your behalf is incredibly important.
And not just that, and I think the detective would agree with me if he was here, you're letting so many other people into your life, letting them know that you're not home.
Yes.
So
very
when you're letting people know that you're here, you're there, at the moment that you're there, you don't know if you have someone that's, a thief or someone that, cat burglars, things of that nature to, oh, they're not home. We can stop by their house and, they're away for X amount of time, so you don't want to let people into your life 24/7. Like I went away not too long ago and I posted a picture of my parents and I at a wedding. I didn't post it till a week or two later that we were there. So it's important for you to try to keep some type of what's the word I want to use?
Some boundaries.
Some boundaries.
Yes.
Not even just boundaries, but just keeping your life a little more personal. Not just putting everything out there. And keeping some people at bay. You don't want everyone to know everything about you. Your life is precious. And you should be kept that way.
And this can be kind of tricky too, especially when you're talking to people of a younger generation, because the argument that I've heard, especially at home, is that, this platform is meant to be instantaneous. So I want my friends to know what I'm doing. I want people to see what I'm posting as it happens, because that is the purpose of this platform. And again, having those conversations about, I understand that that's the purpose of this, but what if we posted this 10 minutes later?
Right.
What if we posted this, at so-and-so time? Because I know, for example, you take a kid to Disney and they have their phone, right? It's very visually stimulating, and you are taking pictures all the time, and you want to share those photos because you're excited.
But also think about, what value would it bring if I shared this photo now? And what am I missing out on by not living in the moment and just appreciating the time and the experience that we're having right now, as opposed to constantly taking pictures or recording? There's a cost to that as well, and you're missing out on communication opportunities, and you're missing out on a certain experience when you're constantly posting as well.
I think it's also important because I will give you an example. I used the phone at dinner with my mom the other week, right? And she said, you need to be here. And I thought to myself, well, I am here, but I just wanted to send this photo really quick. So having that conversation of, social media is very present, right? It's very present in our lives. It's very present in our kids' lives. So saying that I understand that, this is real for you. This is important to you. But for right now, will it make a difference, to just hold off a little bit?
And the word I was looking for is remaining private. That's what I meant there. That's what I was looking for, is just having that time where you're just private. You don't have to just put your whole life, your business out there. And I think we need to continue to educate our kids on remaining private, and that's what the detective was saying, is that certain information you don't put out there. You have to learn and remember that there are people out there that want to hurt people, that want to do bad things. That's their nature. They're criminals. So you have to learn to keep things private so you don't give these criminals access, into your life and what's going on, because they're waiting for that information. And if you don't learn to continue to keep something private, then you're just giving them access to you, and you're not even thinking about it.
Tessa, you had mentioned YouTube. Tell me well, first of all, for viewers who don't know what YouTube is, tell us what YouTube is and some of the dangers of YouTube.
So YouTube is a video platform, and what you can do is, just like any search site, you can go onto youtube.com and search for literally any topic, and you will find a video attached to it. Now, you will have videos where if your child is searching something, you may have to confirm an age depending on content, because YouTube will filter their videos on behalf of us. And like I was saying before, there are some complexities when you're trying to actually filter what your child sees on YouTube, because there's no real, as I know of today, kind of parental control on YouTube. So what you can do, like I was saying, is you can search music videos, you can search drone footage of certain cities, you can search anything that you want. And kids these days will typically be watching YouTubers. So those are like your Logan Paul, or I'm not as into YouTube, so please, if you have any other YouTubers, just
there are YouTubers, but I see that the kids are big on YouTube, and they'll just sit there for as long as you allow them to just and watch YouTubers do things. I was with clients yesterday, and they were showing me these guys that I had never heard of, but they're big on YouTube and making money doing what they're doing on YouTube. So I haven't come across any real parental controls. It's more about the parental control being the parent. That's the control.
So my concern with YouTube with my kids is that you'll put on a video for them, and then the next video that comes on may be inappropriate, and then we're all panicked, like, well, we were watching this for a few minutes, and all of a sudden this came on, and we're mortified that the kids have seen this. So we've actually said, okay, nobody's watching YouTube unless mommy and daddy are right there to watch the video, and we can quickly adjust if we need to. The other issue you brought up, the YouTubers, you're watching other people live their lives and have experiences, but you're not having that experience. So I encourage kids, get up and have your own experience. You don't need to watch somebody opening the toy that you don't get to play with. Go play with your toys, or go outside.
Those are actually some of the most popular videos on YouTube of all time, are unboxing toy videos, which is incredibly interesting because, in the 80s and 90s, you had to watch all these commercials with the hot new toy that was coming out or whatever else. But I think to go beyond that topic and just say that kids are so into YouTube because they see it as a viable career. So a lot of kids that you may talk to in 4th, 5th grade will say, I want to become a YouTuber. And I think it's great to, allow your child to do what they want to do, to experience the experiences they want to have, but saying that, this is only a very small percentage of people who are able to make careers off of YouTube. It's like talking about the NFL, right?
Yes.
Only 1% or less make it into the NFL. So yes, by all means try, but this is how we can go about maybe making a vlog on YouTube safely. This is a channel that I think might really help us. So encouraging kind of that dream, but still being very realistic about it is also incredibly helpful for YouTube.
We got another question that came in. As a parent, what can I do to set a good example of how to use social media for my child?
So I will say a personal one, that try to avoid just constantly arguing with people on Facebook, because I think we as adults, we know how to push buttons already, and kids are figuring out how to push buttons, you know what I mean? So we'll end up posting some images because we want to relax as adults. We may post a comment because we're angry at a political post, or we may post a comment because we disagree with something that we see that a friend posts. So just being mindful of, especially if you're friends with your child on Facebook, about what they can read and what they can see, and the language that you might be using in particular is a big one.
And also self-control in terms of time frames. We're talking about time frames, time limits on our children being on social media. Well, you got to also control yourself so you can lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you want to put those limits there. You know, and it's healthy for yourself. You know, if you put those limits in place as well, so you're not always on there, because as we know, people are always, as I said, walking with their heads down, but also driving in their cars as well. They're on there. So if you're in your car and you're on social media and your child's in the back seat, they're going to see what you're doing. So they're going to feel that it's okay to do that when they get to that age limit of driving as well. Well, you used to do it. Why are you talking to me about doing it? So leading by example.
It's huge.
Yes.
So I think that also brings us to the concept of digital citizenship. Can you comment on that?
So if you are looking from an academic perspective, for example, digital citizenship is really considering who you want to be seen as, right? Some marketers may call it understanding your brand. So in terms of digital citizenship, what I like to talk to kids about is, for one, understanding where your information is coming from if you're sharing something online, right? And understanding what you search and how you present yourself, because we have those conversations in person about how we would like to be treated, so we carry ourselves a certain way. And that definitely carries over into the digital realm, because as we said before, everything that you post has the potential to come back, to be saved, to be seen again in 10, 15, 20 years.
So that you can also, if you go to the digital citizenship website, you can find the contracts, the family and social media contracts on there. You can get templates, and there's a lot of good resources on that site. So I definitely would point you in that direction.
And that's a big one to bring up as well, is that I don't think a lot of parents even know or understood digital citizenship. So if they do go to the website, there is a lot of information on there to help them come up with a lot of things that we spoke about, to help point them in the right direction, to help curb what they're talking about with their kids.
Are online video games safe?
This is by far my favorite topic of all time, because I grew up in a time where my parents encouraged me playing video games. And I will say that, online video game platforms, so whether your child is playing Fortnite or they're on Xbox Live or PSN, the PlayStation Network, they will interact with people from all over the globe. You can have an 11-year-old playing with a 35-year-old, but you aren't going to be interacting in as much of the same ways that you would through Facebook, for example. So you can still send messages, you can connect with those people. But really, a lot of kids will go and just play the game and kind of ignore what's happening. You will have some kids who will interact with other people online. So making sure they stay safe, again, goes back to that conversation. Because games are going to be a huge deal to any, kid of any age.
Right. And it goes back to the conversation, the dialect, and a parent understanding that, kids are going to be interacting with so many individuals across the globe. So parents really being in tune to their child. I mean, when it comes down to playing the video games, a child can have headphones on and a parent not know what's being said, what kind of dialect is going on amongst the individuals on the game. So having a conversation with your child and understanding that, setting an age range for your child to really be involved in these type of games, because there's so many kids that are playing games that say for mature audiences, and parents aren't paying attention to that. A child wants a game, I'm gonna just get that game, and it shouldn't be. If parents are being more hands-on with the games that they're buying, or more conscientious of the games that they're purchasing for their child, then most likely they won't be online with individuals that are out of their age range. So just being more conscientious of those games that you're purchasing. I know a lot of kids, males and females, they may like to play some of the shooting games. Is that really appropriate for their age range? That's what parents have to really start doing, is really focusing on the age range. And then I don't think you would have to worry so much as who's online with them and who they're playing with. So you have to be more hands-on, more conscientious of these games that you're purchasing for your kids. Because if you're buying a Mario game, yeah, you might have some older people playing these games, but the dialect is not going to be as bad as if you're playing with someone that's playing a Call of Duty or something like that, where you're having these older teenagers and adults playing those type of games, mature audiences. So it's just like taking them to a movie. You got a PG movie, you got a PG-13 movie, then you got a rated R movie. You don't have to worry about the information that they're pulling in being as bad on a PG movie or PG-13 as it would be on a rated R movie. So that goes along with the games that they're playing.
And I would greatly encourage parents to learn a little bit more about the video games your kids are interested in, right? And taking a look at whether or not that game is open platform. And what that'll mean is that you have the ability to go online and play with anyone. You have those Nintendo games where they may have online access, but really you're not going on and playing with as many people online. So we saw a great example in that a couple of years ago when Pokemon Go was released, right?
Yeah.
So I would see parents of second graders that I knew playing at Indian Riverside at 9 o'clock at night, and they would just be tagging along with their parents playing. And while, that may be very late for some of us, it was the weekend, but their parents were playing with them, which I thought was so cool, because my parents could not understand Pokemon when I was into it. So a great way to do that is say, hey, can I play with you? Or can I understand this game? Can you explain this to me? Because I know, in the early 2000s and still today, like World of Warcraft and those PC games or computer games were the most concerning because you can interact with anyone. But taking a look at the systems that you buy your child, like Xbox or PlayStation or Switch or whatever else, and just, asking for help. Let your kids kind of teach you about the game.
I love that point about sitting with your kids and playing the game with them.
Definitely.
We learn a lot that way. Moving on, how can I explain that people tend to use social media to post highlight reels of their life, like glamorous vacation photos and videos, and that's not always representative of somebody's real life?
Right, FOMO.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we're all afraid of not doing those exciting things.
And what does FOMO stand
So
for?
FOMO stands for fear of missing out. And my favorite platform, again, Instagram, is the biggest culprit of this because, again, you're seeing those visually appealing images of people's lives. So let's say I went to a really expensive restaurant and took a picture of my food. Someone else might see that and say, wow, I wish I could afford to go there. But in reality, do I eat there every day? No. Or I may go on vacation. I might go to Bali or somewhere else in Southeast Asia and take pictures of these beautiful blue waters and all this wildlife. And while that definitely inspires people to go out and have these experiences themselves, because that creates more trends, you definitely have this concept of I'm missing out, I haven't done anything with my life, I don't know how I can do more with my life, how do I be like this person? And that can be very detrimental to a child.
So there has to be some ground rules that this is not reality. Everybody struggles, everybody has bad days and bad moments, but they are not always posting the bad moments. So don't think that it's not happening to this person who's always in Bali eating in lovely restaurants.
Yes.
But also to, utilize that as a type of encouragement that, this is just your time in your life. You can work towards having these type of vacations and things happen for you. what do you want to do in the future? You know, you want to, go and get your education and then, work towards making the money to have that happen for you, So try to utilize that to stimulate them as well, to motivate them. No, everybody can't be that football player or that baseball player and make that type of money, or this YouTuber and things of that. But there's still occupations out there where you can work and save and plan for that. I knew of a former coworker years ago that told me about her daughter and what she used to do every year for her birthday. She would save up money for a year, and she would be planning for that whole year once her birthday came around to send herself somewhere for her birthday. So she wanted to visit like all of the states, so she would save up for that year working and provide and support herself to do that. She would do all the research and things that she needed to do and plan. And that's what kids need to understand. You can plan for these things to happen. You just have to work towards it for it to happen for yourself.
And another huge culprit of that, again, is brand recognition, right? So we look at these brands, especially kids, they'll look at things like Supreme and Louis Vuitton and Gucci, and they'll see these massive high street purchases that, people may be spending $600 or $700 on a pair of shoes, but they may have forfeited paying for something else. So I've seen that happen very frequently, where a parent may buy their child the iPhone X or whatever else, and then they're not buying groceries. So having that real conversation about money is a great one to have through social media, because you're saying, well, do you think this is realistic? Do you think that paying for this over this is, worth it? We don't have that kind of money. And, as kids are getting into those teenage years and they're looking at schools or universities, for example, and we know those big names like Princeton, Harvard, things like that, they can look online and see these stunning photos of these schools, and they'll go after the brand. They'll go after the name of what they're searching for, because they think that that's going to fulfill the dreams that they have. When in reality, we know that not everyone who goes to Harvard loves it, or not everyone who goes to Indonesia loves it, for example.
Excellent. Last question. How do we dissuade kids from associating their value with the number of likes? Like their mood goes up when they see a lot of likes on a photo, and they're sad if nobody likes this photo.
So a great way to do that, because again, we as adults do that as well, is having that conversation about, are you posting this for you, or are you posting this for the people that you follow? Because I'm a firm believer, if you were to look at my social media, it is a mess of photos. It's clearly for myself, and it's what I enjoy. So sharing those images that you enjoy, that again, if you are under the age of 18, setting those ground rules and saying, what do you enjoy, but let's make it appropriate, for example. So things of that nature.
And I'm trying to find out, are you really putting this on here to just show people your life? And things that you're doing. Did you enjoy what you were doing when you were doing it, when you took this picture? That's what your values need to be. That you're not just putting it out there because you're basing your life on how other people view you. Let's talk about how you view yourself, and keep your self-esteem up, because there are a lot of individuals that suffer from low self-esteem, and depending on how many people like that picture or not, their self-esteem is going on that wave. So helping your children to understand that, you have to love yourself first, and that's important. And letting them know that you love them just the way they are. So it's all about the dialect and being connected to your children on a daily basis. So we have to, like I said before, making sure that we are involved in their life as much as possible, and letting them know that let's spend time together. We have to keep doing that.
So I agree, and the most important thing is to build true self-confidence,
Yes.
and we can build that through having real connections with people in front of us.
Yes.
We are actually going to close up now. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Dr. Mundese with Optimal Care Pediatrics. I'm going to post the contact information for our guests. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.